Hi, this is Coach Hal Mumme, and you are listening to the Coach and Coordinator Podcast.
On today's Coach and Coordinator Podcast, we're going to talk a little bit about the big game this past weekend with the Mississippi State Bulldogs beating the LSU Tigers. And joining me to discuss a little bit about this before we get into a Q&A that we did at the National Air Raid Clinic this past summer is the godfather of the air raid offense, Hal Mumme. Hal, it's always great to have you here.
Oh, I appreciate it, Keith. Thanks for having me on.
Well, before we get into some of these things, I guess I just want to get your thoughts on what transpired last night as you watched that unfold.
Well, this is going to sound really arrogant, but I would have been more shocked if he hadn't won. And, I thought the setup was so great. You could just see it coming because, I've been saying for a long time, I think Mike Leach is the best coach in America. And people tend to laugh at that when I say it, but I think he's in a spot now at Mississippi State where he can get great skill people, and it's a place that has a tradition of playing great defense, and he's never really, been in those positions before, in that position where you could get both, and so I think he's going to do really well there. LSU had a lot of holes to fill, obviously, from last year's national championship team. But they still had, a lot of veteran players back and a lot of players that played backup roles in that national championship run. And so obviously they were favored playing in Baton Rouge. But I just thought it set up pretty well for Mike to I liked his quarterback a lot better than LSU's. And Costello was, he's a veteran guy, and he's although he hasn't played in the air raid before, he was just a heady guy that you could tell was probably going to take to it pretty quick, kind of similar to what Tim Couch did when he went to Kentucky.
Yes, and when we look at this, and you heard it throughout the game, the commentator saying, well, it's the same plays, they run them over and over again, and we know that about this offense, and we've seen it. People take the Y cross or the four verse. I never was an air raid coach, but we were running four verticals all the time. It was great to us. So people take parts of it, but when you look at this as a whole, it's I think the package works really good together. And you look at just the statistics from the game. They ran 9 yards total on LSU and won the football game, scored 44 points. Now, there wasn't a lot of rushing in that game overall, 54 for 89 for both teams. But the point being, though, is in a short period of time, because there was no spring ball, might have been a couple practices before things got shut down, these guys were able to get ready, prepared, and beat the defending national champs.
Well, I talked to a coach, called me during the game, and he's a guy that had always wanted to run air raid, but would never commit to the way we practice, and was always wanting to add plays and stuff like that. And he said, how do you do this? It's just amazing. What you were just saying. So little preparation, they look so good. I said, look, we're doing about a third of what everybody else is doing. So that means we get 3 times as much practice at it.
And that's exactly it. And as I was telling you, my daughter goes to Mississippi State. About a month ago, I visited, and they were practicing. And, I know Eric Mealy, running backs coach there, so he invited me out to practice. And I was excited. It was the first time I was able to watch an air raid practice. I love watching practices, seeing how people do things. And I'll tell you, it was just a model of efficiency. They did things so well. We're able to get a tremendous amount of reps. And it's not just on the plays that it would be like a 2.5 minute period working releases, and you see this whole line of 20 receivers or so getting 4 or 5 reps at releases because of the setup of practice and how quick they do things. I mean, to me, it was just, I sat there and mentally took notes the whole time and went back, when I was done, went back to my hotel room and wrote a few pages out of exactly what I saw at practice. And that's a big part of the air raid too. Like I said, we could take all those concepts, and they're great concepts, but how you practice things is a tremendous part of it. And that's what Coach Leach said after the game. It takes all week to beat somebody.
Yeah. Well, and you know, we spent about 7 or 8 years developing all this stuff and how we practice and how we game plan and how you use the really simple plays to take advantage of find open grass, where's the grass? That was always the question. Tell me where the grass is. And so it's always better for athletes if you can keep it simple for them so they can use their athletic ability. And what you're describing right there, particularly in the receiving core in yesterday's game, I just thought the receiving core at Mississippi State was light years ahead of the ones from LSU. And, they just made play after play and on relatively simple things. So it's always best to keep that. As coaches, we like to spend a lot of time watching film and drawing stuff on the board and coming up with all these creative ideas. But usually what you're doing is you're creating chaos. And we've always had this saying that to be successful at the way we practice and play, you have to have a great capacity for boredom, because you're just going to do the same things over and over again. And you can't get bored with doing that. And you got to, try to make each rep better. So Mike Leach is probably the purest at being able to practice and stick to what, he's running. This coach that called me last night said, "So how long have y'all been doing this?" I said, "Basically what you saw is what we developed in 1991. And the reason he's successful is he hasn't changed. He's resisted the temptation to change."
With that, though, Coach, as you look at it, and I know you talk with Mike, I'm sure, quite a bit over the years, has the innovation really become in just getting better at practice, how we do things, how we can be more efficient? Is there a study that goes on with that?
Really, he's practicing now the way we've always practiced, or like I said, after we kind of developed everything. It took about 5 years to do that. But if you watched the 1991 Iowa Wesleyan Tigers practice, you would have seen the same things you saw watching Mississippi State. This is not complicated. This is the simpler you can keep it, and the more rep friendly you can keep it, the better you're going to be. And then it just becomes the question of plugging the right athletes into the right positions. And one of the things that I think has always made Mike successful is he can pick out quarterbacks. I've always been able to pick out quarterbacks, and a lot of our guys that worked with us, Dana Holgerson, Chris Hatcher, and people like that, Sonny Dykes, they can all do the same thing. But you look at it, we all came from the same backgrounds, and we can pick quarterbacks because we know what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
It's like going to Walmart without a list. A lot of times for recruiting, people go out there and they start looking at quarterbacks, and this guy looks good and that guy looks good, but they really don't know what they want to put the young man into once they get him, and so they end up with all these guys with varying abilities and not really knowing what they're looking for, and it's really like that at every position. But the quarterback, of course, stands out the most.
Coach, you did a tremendous job in putting together the Air Raid Certified program on CoachTube. And, in today's day and age, it's really easy to get information. I mean, we just went through a time here with the shutdown. There were probably 500 free Zoom clinics or more than that. That's okay. I think it's a great way to learn football. But at the end of the day, you got to bring something out to your team that works together, that how to practice. And so that's exactly what you've done. You've taken all the learning that, as you said, took at least 8 years for you guys to develop, and you've put it together into one resource. Talk to us a little bit about the Air Raid Certified program and exactly what coaches get.
Well, I'll tell you, it was really A.J. Smith's brainchild, and he came to me and asked me to do it, and he thought there was a niche there. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, yeah, we've never really. People always want to know, do you have a playbook? We've never really had a playbook, and so teaching this has always been by repetition. And so I thought AJ's idea of having these videos of every aspect of the offense, every play, every concept, every practice, every game plan, have a way to teach that to guys where they could master it. And through the years, the various places I've been, and I'm sure Mike runs into all the air raid guys run into this, is you have these guys come visit and they want to learn the offense. Well, they come visit for 2 days. Mm-hmm. And then they call you up and ask you to recommend them to somebody that they know the offense for a job. And so I just wanted to have a way to know that I was recommending somebody that really has studied it and knows it the way we do. And so we put together, it's 17 videos and there's 3 tests, and it covers every aspect of the offense.
I really like what you've done too with the certification database, right? In today's day and age, I think everybody's out there now looking for, you might be looking for your next offensive coordinator and want him to be an air raid guy. Well, you give them that stamp of approval, right? We know that they've gone through this because the exams aren't easy, and you're not allowed to go on to the next section of the content until you pass that exam.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to pass, and we did it that way on purpose. Like I said, I wanted to make sure that if I called up somebody and said, "Hey, hire this guy to be your coordinator," that I wasn't just blowing smoke. So if they've passed this certification, then I know they know it. And we grandfathered some guys, that I've worked with that I know the offense, and so of course I still try to help them all I can. But we've got about 500 guys in this thing now that I know air raid and know how to coach it, and they're not just guessing at how to practice it, or they're not just guessing at what drills to do, or how to game plan. All this is it's a complete offense, and it's a complete system. And so I tried to take my time and teach it just like I would to the players. And then, like I said, you got to jump over some hurdles before you can finish.
Well, I think it's, to me, when I saw you guys do this, I talked to AJ when you guys were first coming out with it. I thought this is what the game needs right now. Some place that you can, number one, work yourself up in this profession with some accreditation behind you. And I think you guys have done an outstanding job there. For our coaches out there who are looking for this, you could go to airraidcertified.com. I'll put the link in the show notes. Coach, it's always great to catch up with you. And again, thanks for taking the time here, as well as sharing some of the Q&A from this past summer's National Air Raid Clinic with Mike Leach.
Thanks, Keith. I appreciate it, and really wish you a lot of luck on the new podcast.
Well, we're going to kick this over to our guest host for that day. This was a day back in June, and it was a Saturday morning, I remember, and I couldn't do it. We had something come up with, baseball had just started for my son. It was a time where he's going through recruiting. He needed to get everything on video, and I really had to be there. I was out there in the morning, and reception was really bad. It was basically in the middle of a cornfield. The name of the field we played at was Field of Dreams, and it was literally like that. It was on this guy's farm in the middle of nowhere. Pretty cool setting, but I knew I wouldn't be able to do this and be able to get on the phone and have good reception, and I didn't want to hurt the quality of it, so I did call our producer, Peter Gumas, and Peter, you did an excellent job, and when I asked you, I said, "You want to talk to the Pirate today?" You were like, "Really?" So what was your reaction when I asked you that?
Yeah, Keith, you hit me up that morning, and I was a little bit shocked and kind of flustered there for a minute, thinking, "Oh my God, what? I get to interview the Pirate today? This is going to be awesome." But it went great. I was really excited to do it as a longtime college football fan. I had just a great time. getting to sit down and talk to him. It was really like kind of a dream come true for me in some ways.
Yeah, it was a really cool interview that you guys did, and I know this was actually a Zoom clinic, but Coach wasn't available via Zoom. I'm not sure. He may have been in Key West, but it was just a Q&A audio, so it works really well here for the podcast. Now, we did not put the entire show up here. Actually, this is something that is in the air raid certification. All of it is over there, so you want to hear the rest of it, you could catch it over there. But just some really cool answers off the cuff. None of this really planned for Coach.
Yeah, Coach was great. You never really know what you're going to get when you ask Coach Leach a question. You can get anything from, I think one of his answers was, you show me mine, I'll show you yours, to, anything really football related. So it was really great. Again, really interesting to hear what he had to say.
All right, well, let's take a listen to it.
Coach Mike Leach on, new head coach at Mississippi State. Coach, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, I'm glad to be on. These times are such that, people are screwing around with computers all the time and doing all this other stuff, which is frustrating to everybody. But no, it's good to get together with a bunch of people. And then obviously the air raid concepts are fascinating to all of us. And so it's great to have the opportunity to talk to everybody far and wide.
Coach, what do you look for in a graduate assistant?
The biggest thing would be somebody that's very passionate about football, where football is very important to them. A guy that comes as close to needing football rather than just wanting to be a football coach. Yeah, when I got into it, I did it for free for years. You need somebody that's willing to do it for free. That's not necessarily what you're going to pay them, but somebody's got to be willing to pay dues, and the best ones are. And I've thought for some time that, everybody says who's the best football coach. Well, somebody with a lot of resources, they win a lot of Super Bowls, like, Belichick, who's clearly a good coach, or, some college coach or something. But, odds are extremely high. The best football coach in the country is a high school coach. I mean, think about how many numbers of high school coaches there are. I mean, it's a crazy number. So odds are that, whoever's, and it's hard to gauge because the only way you can test it is, if you have all the same people working with equal resources, who comes out on top. So it's awfully tough to measure. And so no matter what, it'd be mythical. Odds are extremely high. It's a high school coach out there somewhere that's the best coach in the country. But one thing that is difficult is coaching college on the front end, unless, right place, right time, player with a relationship or such with your coach in a fashion that where you got to be a student assistant and you get elevated. I mean, it's hard to get those jobs, and they're kind of limited, but and it's hard to describe how. One thing is refuse to leave, be there, refuse to leave, prove yourself useful. Anything that they want you to do it, and don't let some other guy do it just because you're lazy or you're thinking about, that's not exactly what you want to do, because the more useful you are, and the more useful that you are, and the more inexpendable you become, as in all of a sudden the head coach and the coordinators go, okay, well, one of these guys is leaving or somebody's got to go. Well, you want to make sure that they don't think you're the guy that should go, because you do too much stuff and it's a too big of a pain in the ass for them if you leave. And, that's what puts you in the position to elevate. And then, but yeah, I mean, if you're not willing to do it for free and move around at a moment's notice, college probably isn't the key. And that's why I think, besides the fact numerically, I think high school, the best coach in America is a high school coach somewhere that he himself probably doesn't even know he's the best coach in America. I think they get a certain amount of talent right off the top, because you graduate from college, you can go to high school and you get a job, and then pretty soon you got a pickup truck or a boat or something, and then a wife, and then it's awfully tough to go do it for free like you have to in college. And I think in a lot of cases, the talent draw to that level's a little better too.
Coach, can you walk us through your in-season practice schedule? Do you practice specific plays Tuesday or Wednesday in routes on air / quick game? How does that differ from fall camp?
From fall camp, we kind of go a third of the offense each day. During the season, Sunday we check plays. And this is after everybody knows stuff, but Sunday we check plays and execute them out of the various sets. Monday's off. Tuesday is we work a third of the quick game. We work, I'm sorry, not a third. We work a half of the quick game. We work a half of the 5-step drop game. We work the screens that are in the game plan that week. The screens are any gadgets we put in. And then Wednesday, we work the other half of the quick game. And I usually split it. One day, we'll do the ones that incorporate the backs so that they're there. The other day we don't, so that they can go do drills or work inside. So one day on the quick game is the back incorporated quick game. The other's the non-back incorporated quick game. So you cover both halves of that. And then it's the other half of the 5-step drop, and then red zone and goal line.
Next question. What is the difference in how you teach the quick game footwork versus the drop back footwork with the QBs? How do you teach them their drops?
Well, if they're under center, the most important thing is to get a big first step. Most important thing is to get it, because that sets up everything else. Get a big first step and get your hips open. So, if it's a short drop, just one long, two short, and you want it quick, and you want the last step I'd have to show you really. So you take one long step, then you take another gather step, and then the third step you would want in a right-handed quarterback just slightly to the right, because you want your front hip slightly open, ever so slightly open, so your line of vision isn't just closed off, as in I can only see half the field. You want that by having that your right foot slightly to the right when it finishes it up, and instead of straight behind you, you want it slightly to your right. Then it'll help open your front hip, and you can see the left side better rather than just be closed off. So I like that. I think that's important. And then if it's a deep drop, well, then it's 3 long, 2 short. But that finish with the 2 short at the end, I think, is pretty important, as far as because you don't want the quarterback all strung out. You want his hips or you want his feet under his shoulders. And then with so many guys out of the gun, and we're out of the gun all the time, then for the short drop, you just reset your feet. But resetting your feet, you want the one foot, the left foot kind of square, so you're settled up and under your shoulders, and then your right foot just slightly to the right if you're a right-handed quarterback. So your hips slightly open to the left so that you can see a better range in the field, keeping the ball up. Okay, and then the deeper drop, 5-step drop, then you're taking 1 long step, 2 short if you're in the gun. And but I do think I think really the most important part of it There's everybody's got all these steps. The 20 most important things on pass drops, which is the 20 most important things on pass drops, 15 of which are bullshit. Because nobody's sitting there trying to remember 20 things. You tell your quarterback that, you either got the wrong quarterback or he's going to look at you like you're screwed. And so what I think is important, it's important to have a big first step. It's important to finish with your left hip slightly open so you can see a good range of the field. And if you throw to your left and you finish, you'll naturally finish in a smooth lined up fashion. And then to the right, you can see well anyway. And then, but the other thing, the end of the setup, I mean, you want your feet under your shoulders, not all sprawled out. And then you want your back foot slightly to the right if you're a right-handed quarterback. And, the other thing that, since we're talking about feet, but it's important as anything, is to keep the ball up.
What are you looking for when evaluating a QB in the recruiting process?
Accurate. Be accurate. You've got to be accurate. Make good decisions. You can coach your way through some of that, but he's got to have a sense of football and what the others are doing. The most important quality of a quarterback is that he elevates the play of the guys around him. I mean, that's his job, and it's a very important job. Elevate the skills of the players around him. Some of it is having enough presence to be, or charisma or whatever, to inspire those guys. And I've had guys do it differently. Well, in the last year, Gardner Minshew was kind of a fiery guy, really passionate, and everybody could feel it meant so much to him that they wanted to follow. And then Anthony Gordon was more of a laid-back guy that, in the most pressure situations or something negative happened, I mean, he was calm and he was the same guy. One good description is be the same guy all the time because those other players are drawing from it. And then, but the 5 skill things, accurate, make good decisions. And I think they need to start out accurate. I think you can make them more accurate, but I don't think you can flat out take them from inaccurate to accurate, at least not very easily. You're better served finding somebody that already is accurate. And then from there, there's the quick feet, which I think is the most important as far as having a sense of the middle of the pocket and being able to adjust in the middle of the pocket. Graham Harrell was really good at staying in that little bitty sliver of space until all the space was dried up just before delivering the ball. He was a master of that. He ran worse than most quarterbacks that I've had, but he was really good as far as shuffling and identifying. I have this much space. Okay, now I have this much. Now I have this much. Now I have this much. Ball's gone. And then there's strong arm, and then fast, and all are important qualities. I don't see, in the NFL Hall of Fame, almost none of them have all 5 of those things. They all would like to, but almost none of them have all 5. I would say Patrick Mahomes might be the closest that I've ever seen to having all 5. If you think about it, but everybody can think of whoever their favorite quarterback is or a great quarterback. They generally don't have all 5. But what they do have is the ability to elevate and get the most out of the players around them. And the guy that can do that the best, he's the best quarterback.
All right. As a high school coach, we usually only have the previous week's film of our opponents. How would you go about scouting the defense when the opponent they were facing does not run an offensive system that is similar to spread or more particularly the air raid?
I don't know the rules, but I would cut deals with teams that run spreads that team are going to play before you play them, and play I'll show you mine if you show me yours. And, you know, and then, I mean, I'd try to do that. And then, you know, if you have a good base and a good collection of plays that you're running, and they should be able to apply to a variety of situations. I would try to run core plays. Like, you know, it's not uncommon to run a play, say one of the 90s, or people call them the 60s, you know, it doesn't matter. It's some passing play. And I've literally lined up, well, if they play this, you know, we're going to hit this guy. If they play that, we'll probably end up hitting the other guy. If they play something else, we'll hit the other guy. In other words, you want something that holds up, you know. And then the other thing, to the extent you can, and our quarterback can check from goal line to goal line. Well, I mean, if you can't, or you don't have a guy that can do that, still you want to have some kind of leeway to get out of bad situations and to capitalize on good situations. You know, they empty the box. You want to be able to run it at them. And that's a good situation. You want to attack it right then, right there.
Can you talk a little bit about how you game plan and script, or decide what to game plan and script?
Well, I think the most important thing is at some point you've got to decide what is in your package. What is important to you? What are the core plays that you're going to run? And within those core plays, you're better off with too few, not too many. You're only as good as whatever you can execute, no matter how good of an idea it is, or how good somebody else can run it, or how good it looks on the board. You're only as good as what you can execute. And that's the most important thing, is worry about what you can do. So you got that core of plays, and you want ones that attack the whole field, and you want ones that get the ball in everybody's hands. And within that context, if that happens, then you want to plug in and apply those to whoever your opponent is. And then and, you know, can you do something different, or a wrinkle or something? Yeah, I think you can do one or two each week, but not more than one or two. And ideally, the wrinkles you put in, hopefully there was something you kind of started working on a couple weeks before. And I'm not talking about a wholesale brand new play generally. I'm talking about, you know, maybe a wrinkle or something dressed up differently. And then, you know, as the defense changes the different parts of the field, you know, we'll try to change and adjust around them. But with that said, we want plays that hold up to a lot of different defenses. And then, you know, we want to have the ability to fire a play out there and react to it. But and we do a real good job with our scout team as far as duplicating what somebody's going to see and that sort of thing.
Coach, when you last ran the air raid in the SEC, it's basically unknown and gave the league a lot of problems defensively. How creative will you have to be with your system now that the league is more familiar with it?
I don't know. I don't think they are more familiar with it. I mean, those guys that coached clear back then, they're all gone. Although the air raid and people have seen the air raid philosophy a little more. There's not a lot of it in the SEC.
Yep.
You know, and then of course LSU had a big time throwing it with some really quality players last year.
Yep.
You know, the thing is, though, in the end, football's a game of execution, and we'll just worry about executing the best that we can, you know.
On behalf of all of us here, we want to thank you very much for sitting down. I know it's not the easiest thing to, you know, take a bunch of questions right one after the other, but we appreciate you sitting there and doing it for us.
Oh, no problem. I appreciate it. Wish I could see everybody.
Thank you very much, Coach. Good luck this year.
All right. Thank you. You guys too. Good luck to you guys.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, there you have it, a Q&A with Coach Leach, some interesting answers there, as well as some good questions from the listeners that day. Please tune in to All We're Doing here. We're going to continue to sprinkle in some new episodes with a full ramp-up coming November 1st. Definitely have some great archives for you, some stuff if you are new to the podcast you probably haven't heard, so we'll be sharing those as well. Be sure to check out All We're Doing. Follow me on Twitter at Coach K. Grabowski. Lastly, I want to tell you about a great product from a former player of mine at a company called Story of the Season. They've done an incredible job of capturing everything that happens for you in a game week, from previews to post-game interviews, all of your stories, the text from news articles, interviews with players, coaches, etc. And they put that into a weekly digital magazine for your program. They follow your program through the season. And in a year where it's limited the amount of fans that can get there and everybody who could be a part of it, this is a real way to bring everybody in. He's also done some things for you coaches who are working on your recruiting. It's a tough time for recruiting as well, with a dead period in place till January 1st. And he's utilized this platform to create a digital recruiting magazine for your program as well, a place to share all your information about your seniors, your underclassmen, all their biographical stuff, video, stats, everything that you want to share with coaches. He does it through this platform as well. And lastly, he's created a platform to be able to utilize this for a virtual visit for small colleges, and he's done a great job with that as well. I'll include links to all three types of those in our show notes and on our blogs at coachingcoordinator.com. Be sure to check it out.